Sound on.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the final webinar in our webinar series dealing with different aspects of Agenda 2030 implementation in Nordic municipalities and regions. So very welcome to this. The name of this webinar is Monitoring and Evaluation, How to Measure Progress in the Work with SDGs at the Local Level. And we, Norregio, have been hosting this series of webinars with supports from the Nordic Council of Ministers. And today it's me who will moderate the session together with my colleague, senior researcher Nora Sanchez-Gazan. And my name is Óttar Freyr. I'm a GS analyst here at Norregio. Please also directly sign up for Menti by going to mentimeter.com, and you will be prompted to sign up with the code, and the code you see in the slide. You also have the code in the chat. You can also post questions at all times in the chat, and we will pick them up along the way, either during presentations, but also after presentations mainly. Also, please note your name and organization when posting questions. If you haven't already changed your name and organization in your alias in Zoom, let me show you quickly how to do that. So if you click Participants, you will see your name in the participant list. If you right-click your name, you will have the choice to change or update your name. So update your name and organization, please. Good. I think we're ready to roll. I just want to mention that we are recording this, and recording will be available after the webinar. Great. I'm going to leave the word to Nora, and she will introduce the topic a little bit more for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, hello everyone, a very warm welcome also from me. My name is Nora Sanchez-Gazan. I work as a senior researcher here at Norregio, and I will help Óttar today in moderating this seminar. As Óttar already mentioned, this is the last webinar in a series of webinars that we've been doing on behalf of the Nordic Council of Ministers. But it's by no means the least. We have a very important topic to discuss today, which is how we can measure progress in the work with the SDGs at the local level with indicators. We all know that the work of the regional and the local level in the Nordic countries is very important to reach the global goals. There is a widely cited study from Mittelwitz and colleagues that estimates that 65% of the global goals cannot be reached unless we involve subnational actors. So your work is very important. And it's also very important that we can measure progress in our work. We need to know where we stand, where more efforts are needed, and if we're moving in the right direction. But at least so far, it seems measuring the progress in the work with the SDGs has been a bit of a challenge for many municipalities. At least when we interviewed municipalities in the past, this topic of how we can measure progress, how we can use indicators and data in the work with the SDGs, this has come up again and again as a challenge that municipalities have to deal with. But we could ask, why is that? We know that there's a set of global level indicators. The United Nations has published a set of indicators that actors can work with to measure progress in their work with the SDGs. But we know from interviews with municipalities that this indicator set, this global indicator set, is not without challenges. Many of the indicators that are included there are more designed to measure progress at a national level. There are also indicators that are perhaps more suitable for developing countries and not really applicable in the Nordic region. So there are some challenges with this global set of indicators. But the good news is that things are developing, things are moving forward. There are more solutions and tools that are being developed. And today in this webinar, we want to present you with some of them, some of the tools and solutions that are available and that may help you measure progress with the indicators. But before we dive into the program, we can also have a quick look at what goes on at the Nordic level, since this is a Nordic webinar series. Not too long ago, the Nordic Council of Ministers adopted a new strategic document called Our Vision 2030. This document will steer the work of the Nordic Council of Ministers and of all of us in the Nordic region in the years to come. And it defines the goal that the Nordic region shall become the most sustainable and integrated region in the world in 2030. Now, by working on this strategy and working towards this goal, we also work on the SDGs because this strategy paper is connected to the global goals. And again, we have the same situation. If we want to measure progress towards reaching those goals, if we want to know where we stand with this goal of becoming the most sustainable and integrated region, we need indicators. And the Nordic Council of Ministers, they have put forth a set of 45 indicators to do just that, to help us measure progress. Now, I have to say that this indicator set was not designed directly with regions and municipalities in mind. It is more intended to measure progress for the Nordic region as a whole. But I still think it could be very interesting for you to look at because it gives you an idea of what we are strategically trying to achieve in the Nordic region as a whole. And I think at least some of those indicators may very well also be suitable for the work at a local or regional level. Then we can have a look at the program for today. We have 5 interesting speakers with us that will tell us about their work and their experiences. We want to very soon start with Óttar Gíslason, who works for the Icelandic Association of Local Authorities. We want to talk with Óttar about how they work in the Icelandic Association with the global goals, with indicators, and how they support the municipalities in Iceland in their work. Then we have Arne Ingebrigtsen from Kristiansund with us today. Kristiansund is a very interesting case because they quite early on developed their own set of local indicators, really adjusted to the local context. And we will hear from Arne how they did that and how they have worked with these indicators since. Then we have Maria Price with us as well, who's director at Council on Municipal Analysis in Sweden. This organization hosts the Collada Database. This database includes local level indicators on the SDGs that are ready for Swedish municipalities to use. Now, if you would join us from another Nordic country, you might think that perhaps this is a bit less relevant for you, this presentation, since this is about Sweden, but I would encourage you to listen very closely because we know that many other Nordic countries are also in the process of designing and opening up very similar databases. So by listening to Maria, you might get a very good impression how you might work with the databases in your countries in the future. And then finally, we have Björn Grönholm and Anna Bertoft from Turku with us. Turku was one of the first cities in Europe to publish a so-called voluntary local review. So they have reported progress in their work to the United Nations using this tool of a voluntary local review. And we will hear from Björn and Anna what they have learned in this process and what kind of recommendation they can give to the rest of us. But before we dive in with that, we actually want to engage you a little bit. We have a first Menti question for you that you should be able to see quite soon. So I hope all of you managed to go on mentimeter.com and put in the code. If you haven't, the code is also in the chat function and you can look again. Oh, and there's already a lot of answers. So we wanted to know from you, do you think it's challenging to work with the indicators? And if yes, what do you think is challenging? And we see quite a lot of answers already appearing here. So we see, for example, consistency is a problem, that there's many different things to choose from. Choosing the right indicators, I can see here. Measurability and accuracy. For lokala indikatorer, that means how to get the local indicators that are relevant at the local level. So we see this is a very useful webinar, hopefully, for many of you, because there are, it seems, quite a lot of challenges in working with the indicators. And we hope that we can at least offer a few solutions, a bit of inspiration to get you going forward on that way.
Thanks. Our first guest is Óttar Gíslason. Óttar is working at Sambal, which is the Icelandic Association of Local Authorities. You're also the head of Brussels office, but you're now back in Iceland. We have invited Óttar for this interview because we think many of the challenges that Icelandic municipalities face in regards to following up to the Agenda 2030 is relevant for municipalities in other Nordic countries as well. Most municipalities in Iceland are very small in terms of population. And then obviously you have some municipalities that are relatively very big and have different preconditions and incentives to devote to the Agenda 2030. So hopefully we can hear a little bit about that. Óttar, can you first say a few words about Samband and the work that you do in relation to Agenda 2030?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. And you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Excellent. Very good. And it's an absolute pleasure to be able to participate in this, so thanks for the invitation. Yeah, so I represent the Icelandic Association of Local Authorities. It's an umbrella organization that includes then members. The municipalities in Iceland are members, and all 69 of them are members. We don't have any regions, so we only work on a municipal level. So that's the difference maybe from similar organizations, sort of that are our sister organizations, sort of like KS from Norway, Salar in Sweden, and so on. That's how we are set up in a similar way. We are with the umbrella for all the municipalities. They are members and we work for them. And myself, since you mentioned, yes, it's true. I'm heading the Brussels office and work, of course, closely with our Scandinavian and colleagues there. But yeah, at the moment, I'm sort of an, what shall I say, a COVID refugee in Þingeyri, which is a small municipality on the northwestern coast of Iceland, enjoying a little bit more of a freedom that is here rather than in Brussels. So that's where I'm at.
I want to ask you, would you say that Icelandic regions and municipalities are devoted to the Agenda 2030, and in which way would you say that that work is going on at the moment in your members?
Yeah, I mean, Icelandic municipalities are committed to sustainability and are all sort of trying to streamline their work and their agendas and planning more and more towards sustainability, and even more so now, of course, with the SDGs. Some while ago, our association established a platform, for example, where we have almost all of the Icelandic municipalities participating, and it's a platform on the SDGs. We just started with introductions on sort of what is the whole thing, what are we trying to gain, what to do, and then examples and lessons to learn from municipalities in Iceland that had already started on this in this process. And this is also linked to another platform, and they're closely linked, which is on the climate-related issues, which of course is a big part of the whole SDG issue. So I think that's sort of where we are, and this has gained a lot of interest, and we're trying to move this ahead, and indicators, which we will come into, I guess, are a big part of that work for sure as well.
Would you say that monitoring of data and indicators, would you say that plays an important role in the work towards the goals? And where would you say that Icelandic regions and municipalities are? What's the state of affair when it comes to measuring progress of their work? Would you say?
Yeah, on the first point, it became clear pretty quickly, sort of when we were working within this platform, that there is a need for measuring where are municipalities, where is the baseline, sort of where do they stand, and then where are they progressing? Are they going in the right direction or moving backwards? So very soon in this discussion and meetings that we had in this platform, it became obvious that we need some kind of at least a set of core indicators that preferably all municipalities sort of can commit to, and then even sort of a little bit bigger sets of indicators for bigger municipalities or those who are interested in taking on sort of more of the sustainability goals. But it's a tricky work, and like you said, and that sort of leads to your second part of the question: where are we at now? And we are somewhere in the process. I would say it's an ongoing work, because first, of course, we had to decide: are we taking all of the 17 SDGs, and then which of the the sub goals. And then, of course, you have to hang on that all the indicators. So it's actually telling you something. And just as an example, Kópavogur, one of our municipalities, has gone quite far in this work. They picked 15 of the SDGs. And then they are around 40,000 inhabitants. And then we have a tiny municipality in the east, Skaftárhreppur, where there are 650 inhabitants. But they're also very committed to the SDGs and are using it a lot. But I think they picked 4 or 5. And this is for us then as an association and try to find the core set was to choose, where should our ambitions lie? And at the moment we decided to keep all the 17 SDGs, and then we continued working with this sort of into how many sub goals, and then of course finding the indicators. So this was first sort of trying to set the level of ambitions. Then we became a little bit, sort of took a pragmatic approach, if I could say, because we thought that in the beginning, after having sort of ranked the relevance of the different sub goals, what was relevant for Icelandic municipalities, what would really help them and be beneficial for them and actually tell them something, sort of be useful. And I saw some of these words actually popping up in your survey that was happening there. And then we just took a pragmatic approach as well, just to, when we have that, to look at what data is available. Mm. And then we sort of reached out to our statistical office and just to sort of to start now, what is there that we can use? And then later on, we envisaged that we could then start thinking about what do we really want and need. But that's more of a challenge because then we need to measure it and you need the data, the money, financial resources to do that. So at the moment we're looking at what's there and we found a lot, but then we come to the third question that was also came up on your little survey there, availability of this data down on municipal level. That's a tricky one as well. And I could say we're maybe there at the moment. And what's really pushing this ahead now and has been a great added value to our work is yet another platform, if we could call it something like that, but now between the local level and the national level, and also including the statistical office. And this is chaired by the Prime Minister's office, which are responsible for the SDGs in Iceland. And we're really optimistic now and looking forward to continuing with that progress, since this hopefully will really spearhead us towards sort of finding what's there and what of those sub-goals and then indicators following them we already have and can start working with until we then move on into what we really need and want to work with. I don't know if that answered your questions, but that's somehow where we are at the moment.
I have a few more questions. I'm looking at the clock and I see that we're slightly ahead of schedule. I have a few more questions, but if you will be around for the rest of the session, I want to ask you to come back and I ask you to comment on the presentation and maybe I can ask you a few more questions after the keynote speakers. So we will save those, I think. Thank you very much, Óttar.
Absolutely, and I'll for sure stay on the whole time because this looks really promising, the agenda, and I'm looking forward to seeing it and also hoping for cooperation. We're really keen on cooperation between both our associations in the Nordic countries, but also the municipalities. So thanks a lot and looking forward to it and good luck.
Thanks, Óttar.
We're going to move over to the next Menti question. Isn't that right, Nora?
Exactly. We want to ask you a second question, just to get an idea a little bit of who we have in the audience and how you are doing your work. You should see the question now. Do you use quantitative indicators to follow up the SDG work in your organization? We want to know, do you do that? Do you use official statistics mainly, for example, from a national statistical office or the OECD? Do you use internal data that you have within your municipality, different organizations or agencies? Do you use other type of data that is neither coming from a national statistical office, for example, nor from your internal systems? Or do you not use indicators at all yet? And we see that some answers are coming in here, and indeed, the majority here is not using indicators yet. And yet you are here. This tells me that you may have plans maybe to use indicators in the future, or you're in the process of trying to decide if this is something you can do and how to do it. So again, very interesting. I hope you can find some answers, some at least ideas on how to start when you hear the presentations today.
It shows that we have a purpose here. Mm-hmm. It's time for our first keynote speaker. It's with great pleasure I want to present Arne Ingebrigtsen, who is the Chief Municipal Executive in Kristiansund Municipality in the northwestern part of Norway. Hello, Arne. Are you here? Yes.
I'm here. Good to see you again.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the floor to you, Arne. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. As previously mentioned, I'm Chief Municipal Executive at Kristiansund. We're in the middle of Norway on the west coast. So if I start swimming west, I'll hit the beach just next to Óttar's house. Quite a swim though. In Kristiansund, we use Stratsys, which is a corporate governance system, and all the data we collect from different sources, we put into Stratsys, and we do all the follow-up there, just as we do with financials, absence from work, etc. Kristiansund started working with the SDGs, I think it was late 2016. We've been around for about 5 years working on this. And we're the first city in Norway that actually based our master plan on the SDGs, that was up for political handling in early 2017. So this is pretty much the 5th year. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you see it now?
Yes, Anna.
Okay, great. All my presentation starts with life, death, love, and whatever I'm talking about. The reason is a city in Norway typically has to deal with the quality of life in the beginning of life, and how to sustain a good life. And it also has to do with quality of death. Unfortunately, our nursing homes, etc. And a couple of years ago, we actually got approved to wed people. So now we also deal with love. But today I'm going to talk about monitoring and evaluation. The first, a couple of words about myself. I'm spent most of my life in the public sector, in the private sector. I was a serial entrepreneur before it was popular, so nobody heard about me. But I founded a few companies and had primarily been in the IT business. But Questback is one of the more famous ones, and they probably have offices still in many of the countries represented here. Right now, Kristiansund is their budget is about 2 billion, which is 200 million US dollars approximately, or euros. It's pretty much 10 to 1. Traditionally organized with 3 sectors, 50 operations, 150 mid-level managers, and 2,000 employees. Now, our work started back in 2016, where there was a lot of talk in the newspapers about somebody has to do something. Now, who's the somebody and what's the something? So we took out a quote from John F. Kennedy, which I presented in the City Hall. And if we're not going to do it, who will do it? And if we're not starting now, when are we going to start? So that pretty much sparked the start for our compliance with the SDGs. Now, I'm not going to show too much about the system, but I'm very focused on having a red line between what we plan to do and what we actually execute in our work. And a municipality is pretty much a conglomerate. We do a lot of things and we are organized differently. Countries are organized differently, and of course every city. Now, I'm very big fan of if you can't measure it, it's hard to tell where you're heading. So we've been working a lot with how to measure. Now there are two ways of establishing key performance indicators, KPIs, goals. One is, first of all, it's through our plans. We do a lot of planning on different levels. We do regional capital planning. We have 10 municipalities around us where we are the biggest city, and we do a lot of the planning for the area. We do our city planning, we do our sector plans, you know, the healthcare sector, for instance. We have operational plans on different operational units, and we have professional plans how to do better engineering work, for instance. Now, all of those plans will have to go through our city development unit, which will challenge the plan builders on how do they want to measure this. So all the plans have measurable units. Now, the other part in our corporate governance system is taxonomy models, like the UN's Sustainable Development Goals with their targets and their indicators. We're also part of the United for Smart Sustainable Cities network, which has 92 KPIs, which measure different things in social sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. In addition to that, we have national indicators built from or in cooperation with SSB, which is the Central National Analytical Agency. And we've also been localizing the SDGs, as was mentioned a little bit earlier. Kristiansund has picked out 11 SDGs, and we've added 2 local ones. So for us, it's all about goals. We need to figure out a way to measure things to see if we have progress. Now, when we have chosen the goals, it needs to be prioritized by the politicians. And they control the resources, and they will have to align the budget with what they want us to accomplish. Now, we do present them with goals from the different plans and the taxonomy models. And our plans shows, gives the politicians the ability to show our citizens that we care. And to meet the goals in the taxonomy models, it gets a little bit competitive. We now have in our region all the municipalities have gone through a United for Smart Sustainable Cities evaluation, and it gets a little bit competitive. So that also influences how the politicians prioritize our efforts. What's important is for us is context. We need to show the red line between a plan and the job that you're doing. That English class, that teacher, that English class actually brings value to the SDG better education. And we have established that link. So now if you have this English class, the SDG will get a little bit of a higher score. And but it doesn't matter in in a workday if the KPI comes from a taxonomy model or if it comes from a plan. It will be visible to the employees if they are contributing to reaching one goal or the other. So every single effort, every day counts. And a lot of the things we've done in our system is to actually break down that KPI structure and draw a line between what we are planning on executing every year and drawing that red line over to the plans and the taxonomy models. That gives every employee a meaningful workday. Why am I here? I'm here to contribute to better health, to better education, etc. And that's the basis to get results. Choose every measurable initiative. Decide the parameters on how am I going to measure this, and try as far as you can to automate it. If it comes from the Menti we had earlier, if it comes from the national analytical agencies, or if it comes from your own systems, it comes from a sensor, it comes from a survey, it doesn't really matter. We need to try to automate data collection as much as possible. And then connect what we measure to the results we achieve. And as I mentioned initially, we use a corporate governance system and models to follow up the progress. And every employee would know what impact have I made today on the UN sustainability goals. Now, using a corporate governance system is, it may feel like it's overkill, but when we think about it, it's the goals are pretty much like we treat financials. We have a budget. A budget also has goals, and it has hiccups every now and then. But we treat our goals, our SDGs, as we treat our financials. We budget for it, we report on it monthly, and we follow up monthly. So the politicians will have reports on how we're doing every month, just as they do on leave of absence or economics. Our philosophical background is called the DCAR model. It's actually comes out of India from the mid-90s. DCAR stands for Data, Information, Knowledge, Activity, and Results. We pretty much do it in reverse. When the politicians decide to emphasize one area, they want some results. We figure out, what KPI do we want to influence, and to influence the KPI, we need to choose the right activity. Now, to figure out what's the right activity, we need knowledge, and we have machine learning knowledge, and we have knowledge in the heads of our employees. And to do that, we build information systems. So we have a lot of information with trend curves and all sorts of things to figure out if this is valuable information to give us the right knowledge. And then we go ahead and grab all the data. So we do that for every measurable goal. We establish a link from data through information, knowledge, activity, results, and then the results are based on, is this from a plan or a taxonomy model? So all the way from where we collect the data and all the way up to the UN sustainability goals, we have this red line in our system that helps us keeping the right focus on what we do every day when we try to influence the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arne. Very interesting. We have a few questions. The first question is from me. Kristiansund is really an interesting example of how to localize the global goals and to connect the fulfillment of those goals solely through or mainly through your own database system, your own management data. And would you say that the public statistics from the national office, SSB, have you sort of completely bypassed that product, or would it be relevant to also use that type of data, or is this kind of? Yeah. It seems that you have done this while you've been waiting for data. You've done this system just to get, and you've managed to advance because of it. But how would you? What's your take on the sort of the public statistical data that's issued by SSB, for example, and the context indicators?
Well, you have to be picky when it comes to choosing the right source. I'll give you an example where it didn't work out too well. We wanted to lower CO2 emissions by enabling our harbor with onshore power, electricity to the boats. So we looked at the SDGs. We found the right KPIs, and we pulled data from the SSB. How many ships do we have landing here? Of course, when we got electricity installed, that increased. The national indicator doesn't separate, are they here to get power, or are they here for other reasons? So when we installed onshore power, number of dockings went up, and our CO2 emissions nationally was measured to be higher, but we knew that they were here to get power to lower emissions. So you got to be a little bit picky on where you choose to get your data from. And we sometimes combine, like one of our local SDGs is the public debt, how much money you owe. And that's been a concern in Norway, because a lot of the cities have a lot of debt. Now, we want to get SSB data to see how are we doing country-wise. But of course, from our own system, our financial system, we get our own debt. Now, because sometimes when your debt increase, it may be a national problem. So it really important is how do you compare with the rest of the pack? So you got to combine those two sources every now and then.
There's a lot to learn here. Very interesting. We're having a look at the chat, and there is one question from Babak regarding the Haddock. You were referring to a survey. Is it?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about the survey you were referring to?
Yes. Every now and then you'll stumble across a goal that is not, you can't establish a good KPI that you can get out of a machine somewhere. Sometimes you have to use a survey engine to see how, next of kin to the people in the nursing homes feel, or how, the kids, are they more or less satisfied with the pre or post school activities, all sorts of things. We can use a survey to actually survey the people and then follow up that over time. So even if it's not measurable by, some bits and bytes in a machine, we try to, measure satisfaction, for instance. Yeah. It's not very complicated. We use the Microsoft suite here, so it's Microsoft Forms, and we pull out the names and we put the satisfaction index back in the system to monitor progress over time. Yeah. Good point. That is everything measurable? Are there software values that can't be put into numbers in a scale?
Okay, but I think that we will thank you now for this presentation, Arne. And last chance to post a question. No, okay, so thank you very much, Arne. And hope you will stick around for maybe more questions coming later. So stick around, please.
I have to leave in about 10 minutes, unfortunately.
Fine.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're off to the next keynote speaker, and that is Maria Price at RKA. And RKA is the Rådet för kommunala analyser, doing municipal analysis, and you're co-owned by RKA, as I understand.
SLR.
R.
SLR.
SLR. Sorry.
Sveriges kommuner och regioner.
Sveriges kommuner och regioner, yes.
SLR. And the Swedish state.
Yeah, and the Swedish state. You are here to tell us about Kolada, which is the database that you are hosting to support municipalities in their Swedish municipalities in their work with Agenda 2030. So I will leave the word to you, and you have a presentation, and so I will ask you to share your screen, and then you will do a little demo as well for us to show the Collada database.
Exactly.
So thank you, Maria. I'll leave the word to you.
Thanks a lot. And great to be here with you. I hope I will give you something to think about what the municipalities and regions in Sweden are working with today, according to the agenda. Let's see if it works to share my screen, and if you still see me, not my screen, I suppose.
We can see your presentation.
You see it?
As well. Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Great. The Collada Database is the Swedish tool for municipal and regional benchmarking, and we will see in some minutes how it looks actually, and I will show you the database, but I think I will tell you some points before that. This council that I represent is a small council. We are only 7 people working there. We were founded in 2006 by the Swedish state and SLR, Sveriges kommuner och regioner. We have our main tasks is to have this open database, Kolada. We have also been pointed out to promote and facilitate benchmarking and analysis within and between municipal and regional levels. And there's also a task for us to develop new KPIs because there's a lack of data in several areas, especially when it comes to the quality dimension. We have a lot when it comes to costs and when it comes to volumes, but quality is what we really need to develop more KPIs in. What about Kolada then? Well, it's a database that's built with several levels of information. We have data from the national level, from the regional level, from the local authority level or the municipalities, and also from the unit level sometimes. That is, for example, schools or homes for the elderly or hospitals. There are data for that level too. The database is totally open. You don't need any login or something like that. So anyone with a computer and internet can visit collada.se. It's free of charge, and the content is now about 5,000 KPIs. They are divided into 3 categories, mainly quality, resources or costs, and volumes. We use many different sources to collect this data, and it has to do with the Swedish system of statistics, where the statistics in Sweden is gathered of both state-controlled authorities, but also non-governmental organizations. And there's also local data in the municipality or region that we can use. So I think today we have somewhere about 50 different sources that we collect this data from. That means we don't really make any statistics of our own. We reuse statistics that's already been gathered somewhere in Sweden. Kolada is also, there are also several visualization tools so that you can use this for your information. Besides ordinary tables of numbers, we can present bar charts, trend charts, also maps, and some more types of visualizations. There is a possibility to do comparisons both over time and with other municipalities or regions. All of them or a group of them, or maybe those who are similar to your own municipality. Of course, there's a possibility to show gender disaggregated statistics. And there is also an export function so that you can choose, search your data, you can export it to Excel if you need to work it more in Excel. All the KPIs in Kolada is reachable with the API function. So anyone who wants to build their own visualization or something like that, they can use this API function. In Kolada, we have a wide range of areas covered. That's important for the local levels to use. That's things that has to do with the population or democracy, equality, climate, health, and so on, but also those kind of areas that is the municipalities or the region's responsibility, like care for the elderly or education or transportation, which is the region's responsibility, and so on. So this is examples of what you can do. And in this picture, there's also a map. And I think I used an example that's showing household waste in how much household waste there is in every municipality per inhabitant. And we use a red, yellow, green system in Sweden, and been doing that for almost 10 years, I think, in these comparisons to have a first clue whether we are sort of among those who have the best results, and then you have the green color, or if you are among those with the not so good results compared to the other, well, that's the red ones. So red it doesn't mean that you've failed, and green doesn't mean that, okay, everything is fine. It just means in comparison to the other ones. In this map, we also see some gray areas, and that's typical when there's a lack of data, which is a problem when we work with these kind of statistics. So there are several challenges we face every day at RKA and in the work with Kolada. Of course, there's the problem with comparability. Do we really compare the right things? Are we talking about the right things? That's also this relevance of indicators question. And it's been discussed a lot when it comes to the SDGs and the KPIs we chose for that. The data quality in itself, is it reported correct? Is it gathered correct? And so on. As I mentioned, there's a lack of data, and that's a problem with several municipalities. We always want to develop the user friendliness, but it can't be so simple that we lose possibilities to analyze and so on. So even data analysis is something we need to give a lot of support to municipalities and regions around. When it comes to the agenda and the work there, RKA, the council had this assignment from the Ministry of Finance in Sweden to show a set of KPIs for the local level, because the national level of indicators connected to the SDGs from Sweden, a lot of them we don't have data on the local level. So we needed a new set of indicators for the local level. And that is what we presented in Kolada in 2019. And I will show you how this looks in the database. So yeah, you can get an idea of that. I hope that you now see a new view here, and that's the
yes, we can see it.
The view from Collada.se, and I've went into one of the two main tools in Kolada, the one that's called Jämföraren, that is the comparison tool, and I chose Stockholm as the focus area because that was the start today. This is built for the municipality level or the regional level, so they always start with choosing their place, and then they get comparisons from their point of view. This is a website with the 17 SDGs, and there are between 1 or 0 actually, because there are some of these goals that don't have any indicators for the local level, and up to 5 or maybe 6 KPIs for some of them. And for every indicator shown under each goal, you have your own values here. These values shown here on the row is the values for Stockholm in this case. And here are the colors also shown in this yellow and green and red version I talked about earlier. So the yellow color here means that Stockholm is among somewhere around the means when it comes to child poverty in this case. If I scroll down a little bit, this is the goal number 3, the health goal, and I opened here a trend chart, which is possible with those small icons here. And we can see how the selling of antibiotics has reached lower levels than ever before, at least since 2007, both for Stockholm and for the whole nation, which is the dotted line here. If I go down to the gender equality goal, number 5, there, as I mentioned, we can have this gender disaggregated statistics with a marking in this checkbox, and then you can see statistics for men and for women. The first one here is full-time, sorry about that, share of employees in the municipality full-time working for men and for women. So actually in Stockholm, 84% of the men and 77% of the women are working full-time. And I'm scrolling down one more place. The goal number 12, sustainable consumption and production. This is another chart reached by the other icon. And here is 290 staples. It's every municipality in Sweden. We have 290 municipalities, and they are all represented here. The small blue one is Stockholm, and this is the household waste and how it's been, how much household waste in kilos per person. So every municipality can make a comparison with all the other ones. Those who have the least and those who have the most household waste.
So there are some questions already now in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. I think I will go over through questions then.
Okay, excellent. Thanks a lot. Actually 2 questions were related to specific goals or political goals. So yeah, the Kolada obviously is mainly for the relative progress towards the SDGs. But let's say that a municipality has a sort of a fixed target that they want to work towards, or more than one municipality or region. Is there a ways to sort of implement that to the model? So let's say I want to reach a level by 2030. And sort of benchmark towards that in this model, or is it something that you have discussed?
You cannot put your own target level into Kolada because there could actually be 290 different target levels because of the municipalities' possibilities to set their own levels. So we cannot put it on a local level, and therefore it's just this relative comparison. Yeah.
As Nora mentioned before, I know that we know that there are other Nordic countries that are looking at Kolada and are in a phase where they want to develop something similar, and we are hoping that we can facilitate something like a collaboration. So it might be that you will be approached after this, and if we could set up something like that, a collaboration or exchange of experiences in developing such a database.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's important to say that, of course, these indicators of like 55 or 56, something like that, they are, of course, not a total view of everything you need to know about the SDGs. It's something to start with. It's something to, if you haven't already started your process and setting the goals and focusing on the main targets for your municipality, your local level, this is something to start with, start the discussion. And that has been important to say, that it's not like everything is fixed if you choose these, but it's something to focus on. And we are also encouraging the municipalities to choose goals where they can see that here we really have something to make better. Here we can contribute. Here is something that we need to focus on.
One last quick question before we let you go. we were wondering, because you've said before that Kolada you're working with actually increasing the share of data that's gathered directly from municipalities, and not sort of via SCB or via official statistic bureaus. How large share of the data today is gathered directly from municipalities and sort of quality assured at that level, would you say, or at your level?
It's maybe, I'm really guessing here, maybe 10% of, maybe, at least several hundreds of the indicators are gathered directly from municipalities or regions.
Let's have a quick look again in the chat. I think we have covered those questions. Last chance, no, not last chance, but for this time for a question to Maria, throw it in the chat. Otherwise, we will say thank you, Maria, and we will move on to the next next little session here. And it's actually me, isn't it? We've been talking about indicators and harmonizing indicators. Now, happily, there is a tool already, isn't it? We, Norregio, together with the Nordic Council of Ministers, with funding from the thematic group of rural development, we have developed Nodemap.org. Nodemap is a web mapping platform, and we can type the link in the chat so you can do that, Natalia, and you can browse into the platform, and I'm also going to demo it for you. So basically, Norregio has a large database that we maintain with municipal and regional data, indicators that we collect from statistical bureaus on municipal and regional level, long time series, and at least from most of the indicators since 1990, we update it annual, and many of which we analyze, that we publish the report, biannual report of State of the Nordic Region, where we analyze a lot of these indicators. And some of those that we have in a longer time series, we also publish in nodemap.org. So now I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to briefly show how the tool looks and how to use it. So I hope now I'm sharing my screen. Good. So this is what you'll meet when you open up Nodemap. If you click Browse Map, there's some information in the first window that you should read. But when you open up the page and the maps, you can choose on the left-hand side. You choose the theme of which you're interested. So that's where we have the three main themes that we're working with: the demography, labor force, where we have data on employment and on education, and then the last one, economy. Both national economy figures and socio-economic figures we fit under that one. So clicking on an indicator, the map will render. So what we're looking at here is the old age dependency ratio. If I switch over to that indicator here, click display. You can display data either on a municipal level. You can also display it on a regional level. So switching over from normalizing on municipal level to regional level, click here, regions, display. I'm not going to go further into this particular indicator, but it's basically, just mentioned briefly, this monitors the share of non-working elderly, 65+ as a share of the working age population, which is a standard demographic economic indicator that we're working with a lot at Nordic. To the right-hand side, sorry, if you open up the analytics window, you will see the actual data. And here it could be good to know also that you can sort it on the name of the municipality, by data range, and you can also pinpoint single, and you can sort of zoom in. There's a zoom function. You can zoom in on a municipality, you hover over it, and you can see the data for that particular municipality. Now we're showing regions, so I'm going to switch over to municipalities. So like the Collada database, this is basically a good way of extending to a Nordic overview and comparison between municipalities, which is might prove useful in the work towards the SDGs. There are no specific SDG indicators here, but all those themes in some way are connected to the SDGs, I would say. I encourage you all to browse in and use it. There is also this tool which is called Select Similar, and that's where you can select a municipality by range, and you can let Nodemap pick the other regions, the other municipalities or regions in the Nordic region which has the same values or similar values. Okay.
We have a question there, Oscar, in the chat. So Babak asks if this tool takes into consideration that there have been municipal mergers that has happened in the past as well. Can you say a few words about that, how you're dealing with mergers and changing boundaries?
I'm really glad you asked. Yes, we do adjust all the data we have in our database to mergers and splits in municipality space. So all the regional reforms, municipal reforms, we update our data in the entire time series for the mergers. Yes. Other questions? Can you export it? There is no export function, but you can always copy data from this window over to a spreadsheet. So there's no export function. There's an export function of the map. So if you click sharing, let's see, now it's hidden. You see the sharing widget. If you press print, you can download the extent you have on your screen, or you can download the entire region map as a PDF or a PNG, I think, to put in your publication or report and sharing.
There's last question also, Oscar, if there's plans to include more indicators and perhaps indicators for the SDGs going forward. You say just
we always have plans to include more data into Nodemap. So the short answer is yes, but related to the SDGs, I really hope so. And we will definitely let you know. Since Nora explained our cooperation program for the next period is very much focused to the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. So we will see more related to the SDGs in Nodemap as well, and in State of the Nordic region, guaranteed. Okay. Now I'm going to unshare.
Exactly, and it's time to move to our last presentation, our last keynote.
Indeed.
We have Björn Grönholm and Anna Bergtoft from Turku with us. Anna and Björn, are you here with us? We are interested in hearing about your experiences in doing a local review.
Yes.
You've done that as one of the first cities in Europe. I know many other cities or regions are looking into this, so I'm sure they're very interested to hear about your experiences and any tips you might have. Welcome.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, greetings from a sunny Turku, Åbo in southwest Finland. And as we heard, we do have some experience in working with the SDGs. And for us, everything started in summer 2019 when the city of Helsinki decided to do a local or voluntary local review for the United Nations top-level political forum. And this was then on the example of New York. And of course, the cities, big cities in Finland, Okay, so they cooperate quite a lot together, and the mayors, of course, compare themselves with each other and so on. So if Helsinki do something, then of course the other cities also would like to do it, and it was a kind of a positive pushing here. But for us, for our city, and for our mayor, Minna Arve, it was really important to bring up this local actions and do the benchmarking and really know where we are when it comes to developing our cities. And the concept of voluntary local review is quite new here, and as I mentioned, based on the New York case and the initiative. And now today we can see that quite many municipalities globally are actually going on and start to share their own experience when it comes to the work of SDGs. Could I please have the next slide? And there were quite a lot of well, issues or topics to take in consideration when starting to work with SDGs. We had we had this external pressure, I mean the other cities and their work, and then we had this internal need. We had, for our mayor and for our city leadership, it was really important to know where we are when it comes to developing and modernizing our city, and where it comes to identify, for example, our strategy process. And we have a very ambitious Turku 2029 strategy where we intend to be climate neutral, for example, and we want to be the most modern old city in Europe. City of Turku, Åbo, is celebrating 800th anniversary in 2029, and for that we have a lot of goals to fulfill. So in this situation of the strategy, it was really good to take on this SDG and VLR work. And we had to take a lot of decisions. For example, based on, shall we then go for reviewing all 17 SDGs and these targets, or shall we focus on something? What kind of scope would we take for the city? Would it be a municipality? All activities, all division sectors, all municipal companies, and so on. And we made a decision to focus on the strategy of city of Turku, and then some key strategic projects, and also 2 out of close to 60 municipal companies to be involved in this first review. And it was our water companies that actually already have been going into the work of benchmarking themselves towards the SDGs. And then an important task for us was also to see that is this a separate process, or is this tied, built into the normal city activities? And this was our mayor's intention and interest to have this very tied to the mayor's monitoring and leadership, and then to the close cooperation with the strategy. So the owner of this SDG activities and this VLR report is in the mayor's office. We have a steering group, we have an operative VLR SDG team, we had an internal expert panel, and we included then the directors and experts and specialists in the city and so on. We decided to make this as an internal evaluation and review. And we also discussed in the early phase of the process that this is not a one-night stand. We will do it again and again and improve the process. But we try to have a package that we are sure that we will be able to carry through in a year, 12 months. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, then we started in July 2019 and made the first decisions or throughout the year, and we intended then to have our report ready in 3 languages for the high-level political forum in July last year, and went through the mapping of the city strategy and really see what the obligations are and what are these voluntary actions that we are taking, and collecting data and trying to identify well, where we are strong and where we have a lot of work to do. We engaged more than 150 experts and leaders in the city organization. And we identified also some topics where we lack information and where we have problems, for example, with indicators and so on. And we also decided then to include briefly our city council. So they agreed on the process and have agreed on the targets and goals for our process. And have this report done. We know that also that we will do the next report in 2022, and we have also been benchmarking other cities' activities quite a lot. And after launching the report, there have been a lot of activities from cities, municipalities in the Nordic countries, but also in Europe and also with UNDESA related to this SDG works and so on. So it's been I would say a quite busy but positive spin-off of it. But I will turn over now the word to Anna, who is one of these really operative and great experts in our city on this SDG VLR work.
Okay, thank you, Björn. And can I have the next slide, please? Yes, so I'm going to tell you more closely of the mapping and also about our experiences of the whole process and what we learned. So firstly, we went through the which of the SDGs and the targets are visible in the city strategy. And secondly, we also evaluated if the target is applicable. And thirdly, we wanted to define the level of visibility of each goal and target. And the options were not visible at all, low visibility, moderate visibility, or good visibility. And then we also went through the strategy indicators and key project indicators and reviewed them against the UN SDG indicators. And as we can see, the current city strategy is already very good and supports the Agenda 2030, but the strategy was not directly made after the agenda, because it was already done in 2014 and then it was revised in 2018. And all the SDGs are not visible in the strategy because some of the goals already are included in the Finnish legislation and or dealt by our city companies as well. And the next slide, please. So here are the steps that we had in our process, and I will tell you about our experience. So firstly, when you start, you have to have a decision and a commitment from the mayor or political management. They must be interested and make the decision for starting the job, and also to give resources and secure the engagement of all organizations. Then it's good if you have some knowledge and experts on this subject already, or at least you should get familiar with other cities' reports, the national reporting guidelines, read handbooks, etc. And I would think it's very essential to have this team, the small team who coordinates and manages the process. And it's good to have appointed persons from the city organization, from the different divisions, to participate and help. This way, the team has a strong mandate and it's easier to compile a report. Then in the planning phase, you should plan carefully, but then of course, always the plan is not going, or the work is not going as you planned. So you can adjust the plans when you go forward. But the most important is the scope, as Björn already said. So you should decide whether you are going to review all the 17 SDGs and also the targets, or if you pick some SDGs, or what are you going to have in your report. Then also you should think of the reason why you are doing this VLR and who is going to read it. And our target groups, we had 3 different target groups. So the first one was the international stakeholders, the other cities and the UN and our own citizens and also our own organization. So we wanted to have a short and clear report that is easy to read. And then you should think of the engagement of stakeholders and the whole process, that when are you going to engage who and how, and are you going to do the external engagement of stakeholders as well, or only the stakeholders inside your organization. And you should also remember that people are maybe not so familiar with this framework, so you must raise the awareness of these SDGs and the agenda before engaging people. And then it's good to plan if you need any specialists from your communications department or strategy department or other specialists. And most important is the time, because for us it took 12 months to do it, so it's quite much work. And what helped us really much was the decision of the structure and content, and also the layout of the report. So after you have planned it, it's more easy to understand and realize how much text you will need and how much place the text has, and if you're going to have some pictures, etc. And then you should think of if you are going to have a printed version, or maybe a platform, or just an electric version like we have. And the third phase is collecting and analyzing the data. And that was quite hard, because you might not have access to all the data you need, and also to get the newest statistics and data from the whole organization was a bit complicated. And then one important point is to think of the visualization of the data, that it depends of the target group, but it's good to think that it's easy to read and understand, and have pictures and charts and diagrams, so it's interesting. And regarding the surveys, interviews and workshops, you should think before them, plan carefully what you want to have out of the interviews and surveys, etc. Because people just don't, if they don't know the framework, it can be hard to get the answers that you are planning to have. And then the final phase is writing the report. And there you should maybe also lift up the challenges of your city, and not only the positive things that makes the report more interesting. And make sure you get help from the appointed responsible persons in writing and selecting the contents, and also to get comments on the text that is ready, so that somebody checks it, that the facts are right. And then finally, you should plan for the next steps. What will be done after the review, and how are you going to use the report in communications to different stakeholders, and how to raise awareness and understanding. that was about it, and thank you. I hope this was
so a really short summary here, if you can have the previous slide really fast still. So what Anna said here, that I mean the key issues was kind of then forming the scope of the thing, and also I think that throughout the process we realized that this is really a kind of a visualization process where we try to go through and make clear where we are as a municipality in different fields and with the working on the SDGs. So in the beginning, we didn't realize how important this visualization and this communicative aspect of this SDG work really is. And for that, we made quite broad benchmarking on different types of strategic reporting. So for example, the SDG report of Copenhagen and Los Angeles were the basis for us. Both examples are really good when it comes to this visualization and this communicative element. Yes.
Very, very informative. Thank you very much, Anna and Björn.
Thank you.
One quick question. We're really running out of time. I wish we could stay and talk a bit more about this, but we have, what, 4 minutes? One question to you. What has been you think from, this is to either Björn or to Anna, I suppose, but the greatest challenge when gathering data, collecting data in Turku, would you say, from your perspective, the statistics that you used for assessing the status of the current status of Turku?
Anna, this is your.
Yes, I would say that it's difficult to, or you have to first collect the data that you have, because if you want to have to this report something that the data that you don't have at the moment, it might be difficult to get it on a city level. So that's why we use the strategy indicators where we already have data.
And then also the statistical data is fine. It's a good starting point. But we realized also that, I mean, the national statistical data, for example, is not totally fulfilling the needs we have it, or not necessarily even giving the right picture. So we were handling the statistical data on one hand, and then we had also this kind of knowledge in different sectors from our own municipality. And there was a kind of a gap sometimes between this. And we know that there is also a time lag between the statistical data and what happens just for the moment. So for this, we needed to have this discussion with the experts in their own expert fields.
Mm. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Björn, for this presentation. We have 2 minutes to wrap up. Should we?
Yeah, I can say a few words more for your information. I hope to all of you then who are not yet working with indicators but interested in doing so in the future, I hope you could get some ideas and some advice to take going forward with you now. We will also send you some more information I can already announce. Tomorrow you will receive the recorded video of this event. So if you want to look at things again or look at some slides in more detail, you can do that. When we prepared this webinar, Óttar and I, of course, also came across a lot of databases and a lot of projects and tools that we could not cover today. But we thought it might be useful to share them anyway. So we also plan to send you a list with links that we think might be useful for you to have a look at if you want to dig a little deeper. With these materials, this will help you a little bit in your work going forward. Then we can say that this was the last webinar in our series. We've had 6 webinars, started in December, then going through January, and today is the last one, 6th one. We will, on the basis of these webinars, also prepare a report or a handbook in one way or another. We would start preparing this now going forward, and when it's ready, you will also be informed about this. So you can, again, find some more information there, and we will try to include links and contacts for those of you who want to know more on individual projects. So we try to gather there as much information as possible, and you can use that as a resource as well going forward in your work.
Yeah. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you all very much for joining us. Yeah, work will continue.
Yes, thank you also from my side. To all of you who've been here today, to all of you who've been here also in other webinar sessions. We hope you liked it. And if you have any comments or feedback, we're always happy to hear from you. We'll also send around a survey actually tomorrow. So for those of you who have some ideas, some suggestions, you can leave your comments there for us. And we hope we meet in another context again soon. We hope that we'll be able to host more webinars, more seminars in the future, and you will be informed when we know more. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks.